Response video to the modern mystic. I don't think I'll bother playing his video because it really wasn't that content rich. But yeah, it's a good subject. And he ends the video saying that this should be a discussion. People should be talking about this. And he wasn't too interested in this conversation a while ago, but whatever. Just the idea that there are these modifications to the system we have, capitalism. Just subtle ones, just even small ones, that can make huge difference in terms of enhancing the productivity and the efficiency of our social interaction, this thing that is stimulated through what we call this commerce and production, consumption, supply, demand. Getting consumers to production efficiently, straight lines and all that kind of stuff. And capitalism creates a lot of these herky-jerky lines, a lot of resellers, a lot of bullshit, a lot of lies, a lot of small print, a lot of clauses, a lot of catches, a lot of rebates. Let's take advantage of the fact that people lose their receipt and they can't take it back, and they can't, all this bullshit, all these lottery-style ways of conducting business. Seduce them and then reduce them in terms of their equity, suck them dry. Carnival of Barnum-style bullshit that is capitalism, greed, selfishness, working for oneself as if that's going to work, as if that's what we want to do in this row your boat carnival thing. We're essentially a bunch of boats rowing in a confined space, and things get deteriorated the more the oars hit each other, the more boats bang into each other. It's all waste. And what we want is an orchestra. We want to get the most out of this timeshare kind of idea. We want to all leave the place better than we got it. We all want to make more of a contribution, give more than we take in the end. But we have a system where all kinds of negative incentive exists, all kinds of will pay you to lie and cheat and steal and bullshit everywhere. And yeah, we can do better than that. We can do a lot better than that. And it's all based on a lot of this archaic money, this legacy wealth. There's still Rothschild money, huge amounts of it out there, running the world, and paying people for nothing, for owning, not for contributing, not for being productive, slicing hunks of value out of the real productivity. All right, so I made this argument before, but there's a tiny fraction of the human population that does all the productive work, and everybody else is feeding off of them. Everybody else is feeding off of the productivity of the Chinese worker, essentially. Huge amounts of productivity gleaned from their hard work at low wages, and everybody else profits from the experience. The worker gets nothing, barely anything, and everybody else takes their cut. The consumer and the producers and the resellers and everybody else out of that productivity. Huge advances in technical productivity, mechanization. All the value of those advances don't go to the consumers. They mostly go to these owners, these rich fuckers, bastards, people, who squander that surplus, that value, forcing essentially more slaves to do more nuisance work that produces very little social value. So in the end, what we basically do in our life is we consume. We consume food, medical care, a house, the maintenance of one, heat, entertainments. So you have this list of things that we consume in our lifetime. People have to work, or have had to work in the past, to create the value that we feed on, that we live on. And in our life, we go out into the world and we try to do our share. We do our bit of work in exchange for a value. And again, the game is kind of, you do more value for the world than you consume. And certainly in capitalism, we the workers, or people who think of themselves as workers anyway, have to produce a lot more than we consume, because we have to give a huge hunk of the value of our productiveness to these rich people, the surplus they control, so they can buy up the stuff we're trying to buy up and price it out of our attainment, so we have to borrow even more money from them to buy the stuff. They're essentially financing the bidding war that bids up the value of houses, or bids up the value of cars, or bids up the value of all these things, because we have to bid against all these rich people who are funneling money into these debtor pockets, so the debtors can say, I bid $10 more than that guy who saved his money. That's the insidious game. So anyway, the point is so you can fix a lot of things. Little fixes, big, huge end results. So just the legacy wealth thing alone. You could leave everything about capitalism exactly the way it is and just change it so nobody can inherit it all. So you just can't inherit it. Okay, that an estate can only give away $10 million in total, and that no individual can be given more than $2 million, let's say, as a head start in life. As a cheat in the game of life. There, a simple fix like that would force all of these, all this commerce to go back into the market. It would have to go back for sale on the market, meaning that prices would be suppressed, lowered, meaning that people, laborers, could afford to buy businesses. They could afford to buy things because there would be more of them available for purchase. There would be more on the market, and so more could be bought. In the current capitalist system, where you have legacy ownership, things are owned forever, and so they're never on the market, so the amount of available industry for purchase is limited, and the only place you can purchase it is in a stock market where its value is 100 to 1, at least 80 to 1, 40 to 1 is routine, right? 40 or 50 times its real value. So you have to buy its productivity 40 or 50 years in advance if you're going to purchase it. So you have that kind of nonsense with this system because there's so much legacy ownership. They own every dollar so many times over that for everything we do, we have to pay a huge tax to the rich, so they can force us to work more hours doing nonsense labor. So again, you consume basic stuff, garbage collector, mailman, basic labor you consume in your life. And that's the kind of stuff we should have for a fair price, always. The rest of it, the artistic crap and all that crap, who cares? If you want to waste their money on that stuff, let them waste their money. Who cares? But the basic living things, the basic substance of life, these things should always be attainable at a fair price, not a renter's price. We shouldn't have to bid against debt money for our share of what we've earned for our labor, for a fair exchange, not to be exploited by a capitalist, not to be raped by a capitalist. It should be our right to do work without being raped, without having our productivity stolen. We should be able to give our productivity to all the people rather than giving it to some rich owner. So anyway, if you fix the legacy wealth thing, you fixed a huge part of this problem. Giant part of the problem. So just that one thing, you fixed a hell of a lot. The second part of it is this idea of, he brought up the Russian system, and there's so many flaws in the Russian system. Let's not even talk about the fact that they completely suppressed a whole bunch of social activities, from drinking, sex, rock and roll. I mean, they had prohibitions against stuff there was no reason to have prohibitions against. Idiotic suppressions, and that their real downfall came when they did their Vietnam thing, where they had this stupid war in Afghanistan, and were conscripting people to go die for a cause that nobody could understand. So let's be fair to the circumstance. Obviously, it wasn't a system where they created any kind of fair market to replace the crooked capitalist market. They created an elitist market, an elitist labor, jobs for life kind of bullshit because people were party members. Create all kinds of insidious inefficiencies, suppressions of any kind of innovation and progress. So again, you don't have to destroy the idea of incentives, personal incentives for people to do better. You can have discrepancy in wages. You can pay people for the value of their skills, how hard their skills are to acquire, how hard difficult their skills are to exercise. Some jobs are scarier than other jobs. Some jobs are riskier than other jobs. And people should be paid commensurate to those kinds of investments in time and risk. So there's no problem having a 10 to 1 difference in wages. The lowest paid man gets $30,000 for 8 hours work, and the highest paid man can get $300,000 for a day's work. A traditional 40-hour work week, working schedule or whatever, work year. No problem. That isn't obscene. It isn't an offense to socialism to have incentives. And those incentives would create plenty of room for people to want to do better, to want to better themselves, to want to have more. And you just get rid of all the extremes. And if you set up corporations where they're not owned by anybody, their owners are essentially the consumers and the workers. And if you balance power between consumers and workers, those are our two interests. We have interest as a consumer, we have interest as a worker. And we have to balance those two, because when we're wearing our worker shirt, we want, we want a 1-hour work week and, Twinkies for everybody. And when we're a consumer, we want exactly the opposite. We want the guy to work hard and to earn his money, and we want the best possible deal we can get. And so we have the personal balance. But the point is that, whenever we're politically active, we're always wearing just one of our shirts. We're either labor or we're a consumer. And we vote that way. And so you just have to create a balance in this not-for-profit corporations. Create corporations that run for the sake of the corporation. You'll have a CEO. He'll be elected by a vote between consumers, the people, and laborers. And he'll have to satisfy both of those interests. And if he doesn't, he gets kicked out and we get somebody else. No golden parachutes, no labor unions. We guarantee workers' rights constitutionally. All workers have the same rights in terms of their right to safety and right to a fair contracts and right not to be sexually abused and all that other crap. The rights of workers shouldn't be that difficult to articulate. And we should make it, people should get paid a salary, and everything else they want, they buy. If you want a pension, you pay into a pension plan. You want health care, you pay into health care. You don't, none of this automatic crap, none of this everybody gets the same package deal. No, we can all buy the deal we want in life. We can still have lots of freedom. So you don't have to do this rigid, controlled economy thing. You don't do communism. All you need is a incentive socialism. Incentive civilization. Keep it civilized, but keep the game in the game. Keep the incentives in the game. The incentives for us to do more, to do a little hard, to work a little harder, to try to do a little better. Always keep those incentives in front of us. Always reward us for being innovative and spending a couple extra hours at it. There should always be rewards for that. But you don't need this draconian greed, excessive reward capitalism where you put all the carrots in front of the people doing the least amount of work. That's just nonsense. So these two extremes are off the table in my opinion. Capitalism, unlimited wealth, monopolies, exploitation, unfair wage contracts, all that shit has to go. And this other end of control everything, have one person say what everything's going to be, have no democracy, have no capacity to change or modify or innovate, that's got to go. These two models, these two extremes are useless. The win is somewhere in between where you recognize what the real value is, which is work, and you create incentives for people to do the best they can without compromising their own welfare or dignity or health or the health of their families, and that they can live a nice civilized life being a decent human being. Yeah, so we try to get the most productivity out of people and extract the least. We extort nothing from them, and we exploit nowhere, and we get privileges we earn, not privileges we inherit. I mean, that one should just be obvious to everybody. I mean, really, do I have to even defend the idea that privileges should be earned, not inherited? I mean, I know I do have to explain it to some people, but it just seems preposterous. Why should any intelligent human being have to have it explained to them why this is probably a good way to go? That privilege should be earned, not inherited. I mean, it's just so frickin' A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. Privileges should be earned, not inherited. I mean, yeah, it just goes with those. So anyway, so yeah, I'd like to have the conversation, but yeah, there's just so little room for it now. People really want to do the extreme right and extreme left, or extreme left and extreme right thing. They want it. They don't. It's government's either, they're either property of, they're part of some union, some teachers union. There's some taker already existing in the take system. They're already sold out to the system, or they've so anti-systemized themselves, so conspiracy theory Looney Tune themselves. They're out of the picture of reality altogether. They're on another planetoid somewhere. They have so separated themselves from reality, and so lost any kind of focus on how we got where we were in the beginning. I mean, free markets are what created empires. Duh. I mean, this is just the basics. The function of the system is not that complicated. It's just an exchange of value. We exchange the value of our skills and our time to each other. And we should be able to do that in with some equitable exchange. And I shouldn't have to be essentially taxed, to provide a living to people who never worked a day in their life. Not just a living, but a preposterous lifestyle. That's just idiotic. Yeah, so I think that's enough. Yeah, that's enough. So we'll see where it goes, see if there's any conversation to be had. We'll see. I'm game, but I don't think there's going to be anything happening here. We'll see.